Smile.
All right. If the tech gods are smiling, then we are live. Hello, everyone. Very exciting. We are doing a four-way conversation with the amazing Jane Atkinson from speakerlauncher.com, the incredible Lois Creamer from bookmorebusiness.com, Steve Lowell from, you guessed it, stevelowell.com, and I'm your humble host, David Newman from Do It Marketing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking about coronavirus craziness, and more importantly, how to diffuse the craziness and get your business back on track to be more successful than ever. And as the four of us were preparing, we're going to get to a lot of strategies. We're going to get to a lot of your questions because that's really why we're here. But let's talk about mindset. And we have some fantastic, talented coaches, mindset coaches, marketing coaches here. What are you telling your clients right now about the mindset and how to look at this entire situation, big picture?
I'm just reminding them that we have been there before and that we have survived. I have been around for about 20 years. I was actually blonde years ago. And in 2008, when the economy, the bottom dropped out of the economy, a lot of people felt like this was the end. I'll never work again. It was a really tough road. The same thing happened after 9/11. People were feeling down and very cautious about meeting in groups. Remember, that was a big thing back then. And we came out of all of that. And my sense is that the same is going to happen here. I think that we obviously are in some rough waters now, but this too shall pass.
Yeah. And if I can add, I've been doing this as well for 30 something years. And when I started, I had hair like Jane. So I mean, things have changed, Lois, for all of us. But I agree with you, Lois. We've been through these things before, and there's been a big push over the last several years, as you all know, about moving over to virtual delivery. And I know we're going to talk about some of that today. But what I hear a lot about is questions as to whether or not the live speaker business is really actually going to be there. And something, I don't think it's ever going away. And in fact, I think this is going to ignite an even stronger speaker business going forward, because we're taking people out of the community-based environment, putting them into this isolated environment. When they get freed up, they're going back to events. And I believe that events are going to explode. And in fact, we had to postpone a lot of our events. And some of you know that our business is event-based. This is what we do. And so when all of our events got postponed, it's like, holy cow, like the whole tap got turned off. Fortunately, we have some other things that we're doing. But here's the thing. We are already having difficulty finding time or finding venues that are available to reschedule in August, September, October, like for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
We're having a hard time finding venues because people are rescheduling. And I'm telling you that the event space, I am absolutely certain it is coming back in a massive way.
I love that. I love that, Steve. I have been studying mindset now for about 14 months, and I feel very grateful for the work that I've been doing. I go to Brooke Castillo's Self-Coaching Scholars, and she's been doing a series of podcasts on this, which have been very, very helpful. And I think the number one job that we all have right now is shoring up our thoughts, shoring up our mindset, and really focusing on what we can control versus all of the things that we can't control all around us. And there's so much at this moment, and I know there's a lot of people who have already gone through a lot of hardship with their calendars being cleared. But like you said, Steve, I think what we're going to see is that all of that is bumped out into the future, and we really be looking, instead of coming from a place of scarcity, I would encourage everybody to be looking for opportunities.
So important, and it's funny because whatever the crisis, and I started my business at the beginning of 2002. So you can imagine how smart a move that was. But then having lived through what we've all lived through, 2008, dip, recession, depression, whatever you want to call it, I've always said to consultants and experts of any kind, regardless of what the economy is doing, I said, there is massive disease everywhere, lowercase d in this case, right? Massive disease, pestilence, starvation throughout the land. We are the doctors. We have the medicine. We have the cure. In times of great disease and pestilence and starvation, are the services of a doctor more in demand or less in demand? And everyone goes, oh, more. And now here we are. They go, oh my God, my business is disappearing. If you're a professional problem solver and you're looking for clients and audiences with problems, this is the time to prosper. So I love what we said about the mindset. The mindset is, I am here to help. I am here to serve. And the worse it gets, not that we're hoping it gets worse, of course, the worse it gets, the more good work I have to do. The more my mission, the more my value in the marketplace goes up instead of going down.
Yep.
Really, really good. So we're going to encourage people. We're going to keep the conversation going here, but we're going to encourage people, please ask questions in the comments. We've got a little streamer down here saying, please share this broadcast with folks that you think would get value from it. Like, comment, and certainly let's hear your questions in the comments, because I know that Steve and Lois and Jane and I are very, very committed to answering your questions. They could be strategic, 30,000 foot. They could be mindset questions. They can, any sort of question is fair game here. There's no question that's too big or too small that we are not willing to tackle. We might not have a great answer, but we're certainly willing to tackle it. I, for one, am famous for, what's the phrase? Never, always certain, never in doubt. I'm sorry. Frequently wrong, never in doubt.
No one really knows what it is, but we know you're famous for it. That's what we know. Yeah.
I also, let me just point out to everybody who's listening, we are practicing social distancing today. We're actually, we took it to a new length here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a virtual high five, folks.
Yeah, there you go.
That's not David trying to find his camera. That's a virtual high five. Yeah.
So Gary McKechnie has a great question. I flashed this on the screen for us. Are meeting planners tuned into the future now, or just focused on getting through their immediate issues? What a great question. Who wants to jump in first on that one?
I just heard from one of my clients saying that his clients were emailing him asking for prices for video that they could then use for their entire body. And so what was the pricing model going to be? He's typically someone who speaks to a company, but in small groups throughout an entire company. So he does per person pricing. And I was just saying to him, well, maybe because on a video, per person pricing might get a little bit unruly and it's difficult to price. Maybe he goes with a chunk and says, here, use it, $5,000, $10,000, whatever he wants to charge, and then just go and use it. So I think that says to me that they're still working. They're working remotely at home, but they're still working.
I would just say that I don't think that people in the meeting planning industry have the luxury not to be looking at the future, or have the luxury to dwell, like many people are, in what's going on right now. Because I think that they are busy rescheduling, restructuring, and reserving the people that they serve, just like we're hoping to do. They're looking to make a shift in the way they do business temporarily, because they've got too much that they've got to be thinking about in the future.
Nice.
Yeah, another trend that we're seeing with a lot of our events and the events that we are hired to speak at, two things. Number one is, Gary's question is, are they tuning into the future? The answer is absolutely. And are they just focused on getting through the immediate issues? The answer is absolutely. I mean, they're definitely doing both. And what we're seeing now is a couple of things, but one trend is events are being postponed, as you know. But some of these event organizers have participants who have invested a lot of money to be there. There's a lot of investment going on with these events. So what they're asking us is, how can we provide intermediate value? How can we provide value along the way, so that we're not getting things like cancellation requests, and so we're not leaving our attendees and our sponsors and our speakers and all, we're not leaving them all high and dry. So that's something I'll add to that a little bit later. But if you are in the event space, if you're a speaker at an event and some of your events have been canceled, and I know we have lots of them present here, consider, how can you add intermittent value or intermediate value along the way? What can you do to help them get through these times and become an asset to them? And that's a really good opportunity for us as experts at this point.
Absolutely.
And I think the other thing to acknowledge, I think is very wise, embedded in Gary's question, is, are some meeting planners, conference producers, association executives, are they freaking out a little bit? And I think the answer is yes. Sure. And I think we have to approach them with empathy. Because what they're looking for right now, they're not looking for another goofball speaker to going, hey, you want to speak? What they're looking for is they're looking for leadership, and they're looking for partnership. So if you can flex your outreach, we have a great outreach question coming up from Brian here in a second. If you can flex your outreach to acknowledge the current reality that they're going through,
right?
Make the outreach message about them, not about you. It's, hey, how you doing? I know it must be crazy town right now. I have a couple ideas that might be helpful, especially given the turbulence and the upset and the shift that you're going through. If I can be of service, I'd love to jump on a 5 or 10 minute phone call, something that acknowledges, right? Because it's about relevance. If you're still doing the same thing you were doing a month ago for outreach and for client prospect communication, you are totally tone deaf, out of tune, irrelevant, and you're going to be ignored.
Missing the boat.
Shift it with empathy, partnership, and leadership, you will go to the top of the stack. Let's go to Brian's question, similar to what I just ranted about. Brian says, I'm going after new clients. How long should I wait to start calling them? What a great question.
Yesterday.
Yeah. And when you are approaching them now, Brian, you're going to be doing it with a completely different stance. Your stance is, I'm here ready to serve. Gosh, it must be difficult to go through what you're going through. If you've had a client, I love what you said, David, because if you've had a client call you to cancel or postpone, your immediate response is, oh, geez. And you're thinking about your mortgage payment in May or whatever it might be. But when you flip it around and you make it about them and not you, and say, oh, wow, that really is so hard. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Yeah. How may I be here to serve you in this difficult time? Now you're having a whole different conversation. And I think don't be tone deaf, like David said, Brian, and really go out with the idea that, hey, I've got something that might be able to help you right now. Let me know if you want to have a chat.
One of the things, I think that's very valuable. I totally agree. One of the things that I always say, and I think it's just as valid today as it was a few weeks ago before this got crazy, every time you ask for something, you risk a yes. Take the risk.
Yeah.
And this is a time to be communicating with people and taking their temperature and seeing what's going on and seeing how you can help them. But so I don't think it is a time to slow down. I think it's a time, though, to be sensitive to people who are not in a buying mode at this point. And so what kind of, for example, I'm telling my clients, this is the best time in the world to write. Blogs, you can call them chapters, you can call them articles, white papers, whatever you want to call them. But it's a great time to write. And for those of you who really practice target marketing, it's a great time to be very specific in these articles and make them very specific to people in your target who are going through this morass with us.
Yeah, our friend Bill Cates has a great new book called Radical Relevance. And if y'all haven't read it, I highly recommend it, Radical Relevance. And it's all about how you can start to shape and craft and pivot your message to that particular prospect's reality. Now, a lot of our prospects have some similar threads to their reality now.
Mhm.
But like I said, if you're not showing up with empathy, caring, concern, and curiosity, you're going to be ignored. Now more than ever, you're going to be ignored because that's irrelevant, tone deaf, insensitive, and
Yeah.
they don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
Cynthia Lay had a really good question. I'm noticing that some of my aspiring speaker clients are starting to question their decisions to become a speaker. Should they wait until later to jump in this industry? And I actually think that this next 6 months is a really great opportunity for them to start building relationships. And you know what? If you're new to the business and you haven't paid your dues yet in terms of free speeches, get out there and give free speeches. Be of service to your clients because it's a great time to practice and get that stage time in. You may have to do it virtually like we're doing here today. And one little tip I have for virtual, I actually have a stand-up desk that goes up and down. And if I was doing like a live presentation, I would go up and be standing so I could walk around a little bit and really bring more energy to it. And maybe we could add on to that in terms of what, kind of tips that we have for remote speaking. I'm sure you guys have some great ones.
I think this is a good time to look in your local business journal for people who are having luncheon meetings. A lot of them are the professional service groups that have luncheon meetings and are looking for somebody to do something for 20 to 30 minutes, which we all know is very hard for some of us. Mm-hmm. But it's great experience. And your local groups like Kiwanis and Elks, I call it the animal circuit, go out and get some good experience for those of you who are looking to start now. And every time you do this, get a testimonial. That's your social proof that you can do what you say you can do.
Yeah. It's such an interesting question because one of the things that I've noticed, and I know you've all noticed the same thing over the years, is that so many aspiring speakers take an important stage before they're really ready for that important stage. And I've seen so many people with great stories, great messages, great potential, really limit their growth and limit their opportunities by getting on a platform before they're ready. And so this is an amazing opportunity, as you guys said, to get out there wherever there is a meeting and present yourself. But this is an amazing opportunity for aspiring speakers to strengthen their content, to up-level their knowledge, to gather their more supporting materials and do that social work and become visible on social media, make a presence for themselves and get ready so that when this does pass and those stages open up, even those free stages, and maybe even especially those free stages, they'll actually be able to make a statement when they get out there. Use this time to prepare, and this is not vacation time, especially for aspiring speakers. This is an opportunity to get what you need so that when you take that platform, you've got some actual value, real content. You're making a real difference. You're affecting change, inspiring people, motivating people, educating people. And that's how you make a name for yourself. This is a huge opportunity. So I would tell your clients, let's get on this, up level the game right now.
Fantastic.
God forbid we deepen our expertise.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Exactly. Oh my God. It's a fantastic time for that. Let me pop over to Kara's question. Do you recommend speakers help one another in some way when they have date conflicts with their rescheduled events? What's the best way to do that?
That's going to be I think that's going to be a big problem. Like you said, with hotels, Steve, everything is going to be bottlenecked. And so we're going to have to try to figure out ways to support one another through the bottleneck. So we have an open highway right now. It's going to be a traffic jam later on. And so absolutely, you could be lining up 2 or 3 people that you could refer to when you're not available. Some at the same price point, some maybe for clients who don't have the fee for you. So some at a lower price point. I think that should be something that happens all the time.
I do too.
Yeah. And so you're going to be really, I think, juggling calendars later on. I'd love to hear your all's prediction. This is, I know, putting us a little bit on the line, but I actually think calls might be starting to come back in May. And obviously we don't know what's really going to happen, but when do you all think that calls will start coming in for meetings that are being scheduled?
Well, I have great news. Jane and Steve are in Canada, but Lois and I can tell you Trump has it under control. It's all fine.
Yes, but sadly, we're not allowed to drive there anymore because the border.
Personally handling it. He's personally handling it.
At least,
what do you guys
Trudeau
think?
and Trump are talking to each other and
Yeah.
making nice right now.
We've made
So that's
progress, Jane. You're right.
We'll take that. We'll take that.
Yes, we've made progress. Things were going along great till you just said that, David. So
Yeah,
thank you. We were in a groove there, but I really think that it's really hard to predict. I have heard some of the experts and some of the economists say that it's going to be about June, and I don't know. I think the thing is that what you need to do is prepare yourself for when this happens. Be prepared. This is a great time. Update your marketing materials. Mm-hmm. Make sure your website is crystal clear about what you do. Make sure you have the newest testimonials up. Make sure your house is in order so you're really ready to go out there and do a full court press.
Yeah. Video. Yep.
I'm going to go Zen here for a moment. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
I think fear and uncertainty, they have a lead time and they have a lag time. If you can cut off that fear and uncertainty in your world, you will get a jump start on everyone who's hiding under their desk right now. So whether we're talking about marketing, advertising, outreach, this is the time to double down because your competition is probably hiding under their desk or woe is me, the sky is falling, isn't this terrible? Other people are seeking out new ways to serve and new ways to help and new ways to offer value that as soon as this picks up, whether it's May or June or whenever, they're going to be first in line because they were not hiding under their desk right now.
Yeah, you don't have the luxury to hide under your desk if you want to make money doing this. You just don't.
Right. Next question is from Alfred. How can we best approach meeting planners about providing virtual speaker services? Big topic.
If your client has postponed, I think you would be well served to go back to them and say, hey, what could we do in the meantime? Obviously, you thought this message was important. Why don't we get started right now? And let's set something up virtually. We can do small groups. We can do whatever. Not only could that willingness to be of service to your client work well for you, but I actually think you might even see some additional revenue coming from it. Like my client, where they were saying in the interim, let's do this. And they were certainly willing to pay.
Yeah, I think I agree with this. In fact, I've had one major corporate client that had hired me to do a bunch of training and then speak at a big event in May. Of course, that has been postponed or canceled. And they came to me and they said, how can you help us turn this, solve this problem virtually? And so we're working that out. And I think, Jane, you've hit it right on the head. I think, these people, these organizations and planners, they don't want to lose these conferences. They don't want to cancel these conferences. They want to postpone them and or find a way to provide that intermediate service, right? And so I think a really good way to approach this is to be creative and say, how can we? That's the best question in the world, right? How can we transform this into a win-win for everybody? As a speaker, I can do virtual lunch and learns. I can do one-on-one coaching. I can do Zoom coaching. I can do webinars for you. I can do videos for you. I can create e-courses for you. There's all kinds of different ways where we can use the spoken word to deliver our content. And all we need to do is help them be creative, because meeting planners, and especially I think corporate meeting planners, they do what they do. And oftentimes they're too busy putting out fires to think outside the box. And if we come to them with out of the box suggestions, I think you'd be surprised how many will go, it never even occurred to me that we could do that. And as Jane said, I think that there's additional revenue opportunity there. So we need to be a little bit more creative in how we approach things and make ourselves available to offer suggestions.
I also think that this is a great time to add virtual presentations to your menu. Yeah. I have, back when I used to do sales programs for corporate, I was blonde. One of the things I did after the program, I would call up the person who hired me to speak, and I would say, do you think it would make sense for me to work with your sales managers to actually implement the stuff that you heard me talk about? Now, that's hard for somebody to say, no, we're not interested in implementing. I mean, it makes them sound pretty dumb. But sometimes I made more money on the back end virtually meeting with sales managers than I did on the front end. So this is something you want to be thinking about. How can I fold this into my business permanently to fill some needs?
Yeah. Absolutely. And this also rolls into our next question. Steve Iacovelli says, I'm trying to pivot by running a webinar on how to run webinars. Very meta. Suggestions on sharing the opportunity aside from social media, like sharing it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. But I love that because it also ties into what Lois just said. Let me help you, right? So if association wants to go virtual, just like we want to add a permanent asset into our toolkit, Steve is saying, hey, let me show you how to run a webinar program via webinar in his case. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, maybe Steve could offer it up to the groups that he ultimately wants to be in front of. So if he wants to be in front of realtors, then let's go out to every real estate association statewide, and you've got 50 to choose from, and offer it and say, hey, do you want to partner with me on that? Maybe you do a split of the gate fee or something like that. I think there's a lot of opportunity, or maybe even locally. The Chamber of Commerce might want to be involved. It depends on where you want to ultimately be speaking, on what level.
Yeah, if I could add to that to help Steve, because we're doing the exact same thing with our community. But one of the things that we're doing, which is making a big difference, is we are reaching out to people in our circles of influence who would not otherwise work with us. So our fees are such that it's not for everybody. We're sort of at this higher level fee. So there's a lot of people out there who are not at a position or ready to pay those fees. So what we're doing is we're going out to the community of people who are interested in what we do, but are not typically in a position to work with us. And we're taking those programs, bringing the price level down so we can get them into our orbit so we can provide value. So for Steve, who asked the question, if you got corporate clients that you have not been able to rein in, if you've got clients who are not paying your fees, or for whatever reason they're just not part of your orbit right now, reach out to them and say, hey, here is an opportunity for us to work together and get some of those seeds planted, Steve, because I love what you're doing. I think it's a great idea, but I think you should start with the people that know you, like you, trust you, but are just not yet ready to work with you, and plant that seed. It's working for us. That's what we're doing.
Yep.
Tremendous. Marty Wolf has a question, and this is something that I have mixed feelings about when clients ask me about. I'm in the education market. My first answer is good, get out. But that's just me. That's just me. Anyone speak to the educational market and how they are adjusting and coping?
We have a lot of kids who may lose their entire year of school. So the whole graduating class of 2020 may be in a lot of difficulty right now. Now, Marty, I don't know exactly where I see the opportunity from that perspective, but what about all the student leadership conferences where these kids are going to need some tools to figure out how to deal with that? And if their year is canceled, I really hope that doesn't happen. That sounds like a very much a worst case scenario. Maybe they could be done virtually. There may be an opportunity there as well. I think the education market is great for people who want to cut their teeth and really go into a city and do 3 and 4 different things for different groups. But yes, definitely most of my clients want to get out and move into corporate eventually.
Other thoughts on just the education market, schools, K through 12, teachers, superintendents, principals?
Not me, really.
I left school at 15 and never went back, so I don't know.
There you go. So we're all getting out of education.
You want to be ashamed of yourself.
Right. Let's go to Jerry. Jerry Teplitz has a question. How are meeting planners feeling about us calling now to prospect with them for the future? how do you overcome if that seems a little insensitive or maybe even ambulance chasing or weird? How do we get over that mindset? And then how do we present that to a meeting planner that we're really there to help and not to pitch?
I think it's just relationship building. You're not there to pitch right now. You're there to serve in whatever capacity they need for you to be. And when you take that stance, like it all comes down to intention, I think, Jerry. When you take the stance of I'm not here to pitch you, I'm here to just check in on you and see how are you. I don't think anybody ever got into trouble for saying, hey, how's it going? Are you okay?
Yeah. And how can I serve you in the here and now? I think, is important, and not just go into what future opportunities there might be. How can I help you in the here and now? Because that's where people are living right now. It's hard to make these, we can't make long-term decisions at this point, where it's a little premature, I think. As I said, I think I see this passing, this too shall pass, but I do think that we need to deal with people in the here and now and what they're going through.
Beauty.
I am looking for the question, but I'm not finding it. So I'll ask. I forget whose question it was, but it's about pricing. How do we price virtual programs? How do we price if it's by Zoom or by webinar? What are your thoughts? What are some options for pricing virtual presentations and virtual experiences?
I just put something on Facebook right before I signed in here, and I wrote a blog post about this last week. My sense about this whole thing is that you need to charge for the value of the intellectual property, not the delivery system. Okay.
That's good.
And I think that can be a hard nut to crack with some people. I think that you need to point out that, expenses now are expensive. And so someone is saving on expenses. I say, if you have to pull out a discount, remind them about the expenses. Most speakers do a local discount. If you have to, you can pull that out. But, my first gut reaction is you've got to sell the value of the intellectual property and the ideas that you're going to share and the application of those ideas in the here and now.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Lois. And what I've done is when they ask me about reducing the fees, do you have a discount for virtual delivery? I say, yes, I do. You don't need to pay my travel. You don't need to pay my hotel. You don't need to pay my food. Now, the other thing is, though, there is this perception oftentimes that we have to confront, that the perception of virtual delivery is not as valuable as live delivery. So I don't think it always serves us just to shut that down. But I think this has worked for me, and that is I will never discount my fees. But what I will do is I will exchange value for value and find a different way, because I don't want to be pigeonholed as somebody who discounts their fees, and I don't think any of us do. But I think exchanging value for value is a good way, and I think you'll find that a lot of people are really open to that concept, because even if they don't have the speaker budget, they'll take it out of another budget. They'll take it somewhere else, and you can send books or a referral or a copy of the video or a testimonial or an introduction. Right? There's a million ways to exchange value for value. But I 100%, Lois, the value is in the intellectual content for sure.
Can I take a contradictory view? And this is the thing about our industry. Everybody wants to do the business the way and build the business model that's perfect for them. And so no two people are doing it the same. And yet a lot of people are thriving despite doing it differently than each other. I have a big fairness factor button about me. And I would like to say that for me, I like to have my clients to have a sleep in their own bed price, right? So that's if they can drive out an hour and come home and sleep in their own bed, that's maybe their local fee. But a virtual program that you can give again and again from the comfort of your computer, to me, there's just so much less to that for you and for the client. And so I interviewed someone who ran a company that did all virtual programs. Apologies, I can't remember his name right offhand. And he had suggested 50% of your regular fee. So I'll just drop that number. Now, I am also a fan of standing tall in your fees. And I believe, and I hear you when you say, this is your intellectual property. It's not for the 1 hour that you're out there. It's for the 20 years that took to get to that 1 hour of content. I really believe in that. But I mean, I'll just throw this number out because I actually think that that's what clients are going to expect at this moment in time. So I'll just put it out there.
Yeah, I think it could be. Steve, I really appreciated what you just said, because I think anytime, whether speaking virtually or whether you're going in to present, anytime you meet fee resistance and somebody undercuts your fee, you need to say, if it's something you want to do, if I could do that. Now, I'm not committing. If I could do that, what else of value would you be able to offer me to make this commensurate with the fee that my clients pay me?
Yeah.
You can always negotiate down. You can rarely negotiate up. Yeah. Let's go to Jonathan Edwards. Loaded question here, aimed at Jane, I guess, but we can all chime in, or certainly Steve can chime in. Any thoughts on a Canadian market versus U.S. market, which is kind of an evergreen question, isn't it?
It is. So Canadian, Steve, tell me if you agree. Canadian companies are typically cheaper. We would maybe liken it to, we have a little bit of feedback on the line. I'm not sure. It just came in. Canadian companies will often not pay the same amount that U.S. companies will, but I will say I have known some of my U.S. friends to come over into Canada and get their big fees. So I would like to say that it's not impossible.
Do one of us perhaps have another source of audio coming in, like you've got this on another monitor or a phone or something, or a tablet?
I just muted my mic and it was still there.
Strange.
I think we're better now.
Okay.
I think we're better now. Just in case people missed that, what I believe, Steve, is that Canadian companies don't have the deep pockets for the most part, but there are some fees here. So I want our Canadian speakers to still stand tall in their fees and to still go for whatever it is that they want. So $10,000 in Canada is a pretty big deal, whereas $10,000 in the US is not nearly as much of a big deal. Would you agree, Steve?
Yeah, based on what my friends and contacts and clients that speak in that world, I would agree 100%. Personally, I'm not in that world as much. Most of our speaking now is our own events, and it's less corporate stuff that we're doing now. So I don't have a lot of firsthand, but I do hear it from clients that are speaking different parts of the world, and in fact, the America. Every speaker in the world wants to come and speak in the U.S., for all the good reasons that the U.S. has to offer. But I would agree with that. I think it's tougher to get a bigger fee in Canada.
It's 38 great reasons to speak in the U.S. It's 38% higher is the U.S. dollar versus Canadian dollar right now. So just saying, that's
there is that.
38 great reasons to want to speak. Hey, David, did you notice the comment from Libby Gill? She had a good idea. She was going to do weekly live group coaching for her community. And Libby speaks on hope. And I thought, wow, why not get together a hope community right about now? This might be a great way to start bringing people into your world. And when you have a community, whether it be on Facebook or whatever, you can sell to them at some point in time. It may not be appropriate just now, but
yes,
I loved that idea. I thought we should share that.
Oh, I love that also. And I think all of us, and I think people have to embrace their role as a public figure. So we're certainly embracing our role as 4 public figures, but this is the time to be more present.
Yes.
More visible on video, more visible in their inbox, more visible on social media. Start showing up more like a friendly squeaky wheel, that you become the calm in the storm. You become, oh, thank goodness, here's another poet. And by the way, you've all been doing a fantastic job. It's part of the reason I convened this group is because of all the consistent, high value sharing that you're doing, not only your content, but resources, other research from the meetings industry, from the consulting industry, from the coaching world. It's so important that we show our faces and show our value and be more visible and more present at a time like this, as opposed to hunker down and worry about, oh my gosh, where's my business going? Don't worry about that. Worry about your clients and audiences and friends and fans and subscribers. You will feel amazingly better when you start to help them and serve them with no expectation of anything in return. And by the way, P.S., you'll get a lot more in return. It's been my experience.
That's right.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I love Libby's idea of doing just, hey, I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to be present. I'm going to be, come into this community and let me support you, whatever your challenges might be. Cynthia Lay had a great question about business model innovation. That is this a good time for speakers to get into other sorts of things like coaching, consulting, training, delivered virtually, of course, Q&A sessions, whiteboard sessions, facilitation. Here it is. Boom. What are some virtual options that people can really expand their offerings into? Q&A, group and one-on-one coaching or mentoring, webinar-based programs, teleseminars, telesummits. What else? What else do we think?
Well, I think the answer is yes. First of all, make sure you are capable of delivering what you say you can deliver. But my sense for years has been that people who can repurpose their expertise into different delivery systems are the ones who really do exceedingly well in this business. And so I think always be seeking to do that. There is never a better time than right now to begin this journey, because we are having to look at alternate ways to serve our clients that we're not going to always get a check for. And so I think the answer is absolutely you should look at all of these options. And which ones can you add, again, to your menu of services forever going forward?
So what about adding membership programs, masterminds? So I think, okay, so think about setting yourself up in the future rather than exchanging your time for money. Speaking is exchanging your time for money. Coaching is exchanging your time for money. And what all of we have recognized is that when you go one-to-one, you become limited by your calendar. So your goal, I think, is to go one-to-many, either in small group coaching type situations or memberships, masterminds, that type of thing. And if you have been pulling people into your fan base, every speech, text, this number, and let's come on into my world, and we're going to give you something great. If you have been pulling people in on a consistent basis, you have a pretty good list of people who know, like, and trust you already. Now's the time to say, hey, I have a new community. We're going to start here and we're going to build from there. Why don't you come on? It's going to be free for a little while, but maybe we're going to charge for it later or whatever. There's all kinds of opportunities. I think a lot of people pull people in from their audiences and then don't do enough with it.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. And I think everything that she just said.
Yeah, and everything she just said. And so, earlier in the call, we started talking about mindset. And I think one of the things that we've been working on really hard is changing our mindset to a community-based mindset. And instead of gathering customers and holding events, which we do, our mindset really now is about building a community and getting as many people into our orbit at different levels as possible. And I think this goes right along with Cynthia's question, because all of these things that she's mentioned, the Q&A sessions, group one-on-one, coaching, webinar, teleseminar, e-learning courses, and all of those things, if we do these things from a perspective and a mindset of building a community rather than getting customers, I think it really changes the way that we operate. And I know we're experiencing that at our end. So I'll just offer that to you.
I forget which guru said this, but it is spot on with everything that you guys are saying, and gals. I shouldn't say that. I get in trouble for saying guys. I'm old.
No offense, David. No offense from me.
Whoever said this gets a ton of credit. They said community is the new content.
I think that was David Newman.
Don't worry about punching out content. Community is the new content.
Yeah.
And if you can build a community of expertise and a community of friends and a community of colleagues and allies and like-minded people that you want to help, they will thank you for convening that community, and you will get 100% of the credit, and you only have to do 10% of the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are all now impresarios. We're in the impresario business. We're not in the here's my content, here's my content, here's my content world. You can feed the community with a little bit of content, but really the value is in convening the community and connecting that community.
Yes, absolutely. And I think if you think about what are their common concerns and start feeding out information from that perspective, I want to give you all an opportunity. The podcast that has been really helpful for me. Now, I don't know if you're kind of starting in where you're starting. It may come out of a little bit of left field because there's a lot of mindset work done on this podcast, but Brooke Castillo, Castillo, has been doing a daily podcast to talk about how your thoughts, create your actions, create your results. And I think it's really helpful to be working on that right now. And she'll also be going into some business. There's a lot of on her podcast about business as well that I think could be very, very helpful, especially one about the grind of the first year in your business.
Yeah. Really, really good. The questions are coming here fast and furious. I'm just trying to kind of click through. Dean says virtual VIP, his additions, virtual VIP days, live immersion experience, masterminds, group coaching, memberships, community content. It's unlimited. What a great mindset.
Yeah.
And this also pulls together some of the threads that we've been talking about. It's a great time to double down on your activity, prospecting activity, content creation activity, book writing activity, online course activity, community convening activity, and think about other distribution channels for your expertise. Even this one idea, I love this virtual VIP days. So imagine 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Zoom, right? You don't fly to them, they don't fly to you, and it's a virtual VIP day. You can charge just as much as a real VIP day. They're not sitting there to eat your cookies and drink your soda. They're sitting there to tap into your expertise, leadership, sales, customer service, team building, personal finance, whatever your expertise happens to be. Offer a virtual VIP day. That could be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 of revenue every month, and you don't need to leave your house. You won't even have to put pants on. I'm a big fan of pants-free revenue. Don't ask me to stand up right now.
We don't want to see that.
Just one little thing. I think that language and the words that we use are incredibly important about the options that we offer people. And I would just suggest that we be very careful about calling everything that we do virtually a webinar. I wrote a post on this because my sense is that most people undervalue webinars.
Or they're free. Yes. Yeah.
And so if you approach a client and say, I have a great webinar I'd like to give you, I think that their expectation may be that you're waiving. I never say free. I always say waiving my fee. But I think that you want to watch your language because I think it says a lot. So I've been suggesting virtual presentations or remote presentation.
Yeah.
Be careful the way you describe this. These are money words, and you don't want to make a mistake.
That's a really good point for people to recognize, I think, Lois. And I saw your post on that, and I was trying to remember, what was it she said about that? Because I could remember, I remember thinking to myself, but webinars, you're right, free, no good. So Chris West came in, did my live event, which thankfully was at the beginning of March in Phoenix. So we got in just under the wire when people were starting to get nervous. And Chris did a presentation that was amazing and really inspired me. He talked about this dream property. Any of you who follow Chris on social media, he found this dream property, and it was all very synchronistic in how they were able to buy it, and they were going to do retreats at this dream property. And he inspired me to think about, okay, rather than doing these big events that are difficult, you know, Steve, it's hard to get bums in seats, and there's a whole big process and everything, and it's expensive. You know, I was on the hook for $20,000 or $30,000 with the hotel, and if I had to cancel my event, I don't know that I would have got any of that money back. So that was very frightening. Anyway, so he gave me the idea to set out the dream for down the road. I don't know how many years it's going to take me to have a retreat center that I can now own as a property in Florida. So I'm nice and warm in the wintertime, and bring, you know, small groups of 10 to me. So maybe you bring people to your backyard as well is an option for you. Maybe it's already set up for that. Who knows?
You know, I think that, you know, I think it's a great idea. God forbid we do the same thing with our finances as we're suggesting with our businesses, and that's to diversify a little bit. I mean, you know, I think that makes great sense. I really do.
We don't have a name attached to this one because of the StreamYard situation, but it's a great question about, or comment about, licensing and certification. I too am licensing my keynotes and training to be housed on the client's LMS. What do you think is the climate right now for people that have some intellectual property, licensing, certification, potentially sponsorship, these sort of scalable business models that don't require personal attention in 3D?
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an absolute way to go. I think it can be an incredible opportunity. And, you know, as Steve was saying before, sometimes when you license, it gives you the ability to serve people who would never be able to afford to bring you in personally. But they can afford to bring in a licensee doing your material. You know, I think that too many people come into the speaking industry thinking it's not going to be an equity-based business at the end. And I think that is something that you want to think about as you grow your business. And Jane mentioned one way it can be. Licensing is another way it can be. I wrote a blog post, gosh, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago about your database has value whenever you want to retire or quit or whatever. Be thinking about these equity-based things that you can add to your business that will keep you more viable in the long run and more profitable.
I remember being in New Zealand about a year and a half ago, and I watched Bill Cates was there, and he was speaking about licensing. And I just thought that was the most fascinating thing. I mean, this guy just, he has it down pat, you know.
He's the guru. Yes.
Oh yeah, he's a guru. And I've heard about the concept before, but I'm listening to him and I'm going, this is the most amazing thing. It's just incredible what he's doing.
Yeah. There's a few speakers out there who have done a great job at that. Michelle May being one of them. She's a doctor. Her book is called Am I Hungry? And she actually has given, trained. So it's like a train the trainer type situation, but then they become licensed to deliver your programs. And she's done a great job of that. There's somebody else though, who sells, and you all know him because he's quite well known in NSA. I hate to identify people this way, but he's in a wheelchair and he does a really amazing business with video after the fact. So he goes and does his presentation, but then he sells a year-long subscription to video. Who is that, you guys? You know him. You know him.
I know who he is. I can see him. And another colleague of mine was just telling me about.
Somebody's going to tell us.
Business. Yeah.
Somebody will tell us.
But apparently,
Mike does this very well. Shep does it very well.
Yeah.
He has a training group that he works with to deliver his content, and he licenses them.
Yeah.
And it's a great way for him to be able to serve another whole market of people who could bring him in.
Thank you, Robin. Yes, it was indeed Chad Hymas. I
Yeah.
knew his name, but I just couldn't
Yeah.
come with it in the moment.
Yeah.
Perfect. Really, really good. Let's talk about John's question. Has anyone had success getting their virtual programs sponsored?
That's a good question.
So again, for the benefit of the audience here, I know that we all know what that means. A sponsorship is when you are hired by a company, not to present for their company, but to present for one of their stakeholders. So franchisees, distributors, high net worth clients, a bank hires you to go out and speak to their high net worth clients and prospects or something like that. So think in terms of a sponsorship triangle. And has anyone had success getting their virtual programs sponsored in a way like that? We have any success stories to share?
Well, I love that idea. And I forget way, way, way back in the feed, somebody had an awesome idea of, and I had suggested, well, maybe you take it out to realtors or whoever your target market is. So you partner with the local real estate association, but then maybe you say to the mortgage broker, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And now you've got, a few $1,000s of extra layered on top in sponsorship money. I don't know specifically anybody who has done that, but I think it's a great idea, John. And I think that there's always opportunity because there's always somebody else who wants to get in front of the same audience.
That's right. Mm-hmm. There was a speaker, and I don't remember. My mind is a sieve. But she spoke in the healthcare industry, and Scrubs sponsored her, and she always wore Scrubs.
Oh, nice!
Which is an easy way to decide what you're going to wear to a presentation. But it's a great way. They would fully sponsor her or partially sponsor her. Sometimes, if there was a difference in what a client could pay in her fee, they bridged the gap.
Yeah, really, really good. Well, let's do this. We have some more questions, and we'll certainly respond to the questions in the comments after the fact. But I would love to go around to our esteemed panel and 45 to 60 seconds of inspiration, motivation, action planning, biggest takeaway that people should take from our conversation today, in your esteemed opinion.
I'll go. I have a hashtag for y'all. It's productive quarantine. Hashtag productive quarantine. So if you need to be at home, rather than being a victim of circumstance, be very, very intentional about how you spend your time. I think that there's going to be a rash of books being born and babies being born 9 months from now. Okay. So think about how you can be very, very intentional. And those of you who have your kids at home, obviously you have to be gentle with yourself and not put too much on your list because there's only so much you can do with the little ones underfoot. Hashtag productive quarantine.
Tremendous.
I think that's great advice, Jane. I also just would reiterate something that I think all of us addressed earlier. Look at what you can add to your repertoire. What have you learned from this experience that will help you the next time something happens? Because things happen in this world. And how can you best prepare your business to be recession proof? And when people aren't having meetings, how can you still serve your clients? And also be ready to fill the gap when the funnel opens up and people are rescheduling. And we talked about, David, you were talking about, or you fielded a question on who can I recommend if I'm busy? If the most important thing that we can do is to be of service, the client will always absolutely love you more than just filling one specific need. So kind of go into this with an optimistic mindset and one of being service.
Yeah, I love everything you guys are saying. There's not much left to add to that because if people do all those things, then they're going to be superstars. But the one thing that I think that comes to my mind is the concept of adding intermediate value and immediate value, and get a hold of those people that with whom you are working, people that you have not had a chance to work with, people who have wanted to work with you and just haven't been able to make that happen. All of these warm connections, and I would say go to them with the question of how might we, right? How might we be able to provide value to you immediately and in the interim? And put your creative thinking caps on and deliver in ways you have never delivered before. Live on that edge, get creative, get brave. And I love what Lois was saying about just get out there and add value, 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 because now's your opportunity, because you're going to be too busy after this thing flies over.
Amen times 10. I will just add to my esteemed colleagues, this is a fantastic time for you to offer value, invite engagement, build your community, tap into your smart friends. Tap into your smart friends. That's what the four of us did. We said, what can we do together that would add value to our audience, to our community, to our speaker, expert, consultant base? And this was just tremendous fun. So I know it sounds crazy and counterintuitive to find the opportunity, find the fun, find the leadership, and find the partnership that your clients and prospects are desperately needing. They want hope. They want, speaking of our friend Libby Gill, right? They want hope. They want opportunity. They want positive energy and positive messages. And they want help. I love what Jane said about, I've never been bothered by someone tapping my shoulder and saying, hey, how are you doing? How can I help you? Are you okay? Let's all do that for each other, for our clients, for our community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know Jane and maybe all of us have a little special gift that we would like to leave people with. Can we share a little bit about that if you want?
Actually, David, they want to know how you put this together, because the StreamYard is a very unique way of going out. Can you tell everybody that? Because I think I really liked it. I think it's really cool.
This is a platform called StreamYard. Stream like live stream, yard like in your backyard, StreamYard. And it supports it supports up to 6 people simultaneously. And it's also multi-platform. So depending on where you're watching this is live in 5 places right now. It is on Facebook. It's in the NSA Facebook group. It's on YouTube Live. It's on Periscope. And it's in the Thought Leadership Marketing group that has about 3,000 members in it. So you're seeing this multi-streaming because of StreamYard. And then last thing that you need to know about is that the National Speakers Association also has a fantastic panel that is happening tonight that you need to know about. It is Jay Baer and Randy Gage and a whole bunch of other smart people doing something similar. Now, they're going to have different ideas and a different perspective and different experience than the 4 of us. But if you're an NSA member inside the National Speakers Association members only group, where this is also live streaming right now, please join them. It is 8 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. More smart advice from more fantastic people, that their main mission, their main goal in that live stream is to help you, just like that was ours. So let me just say, Lois and Jane and Steve, you are awesome. I am honored to be collaborating with you on this. And thank you for being willing to play in the big sandbox.
Thanks, David. We appreciate you.
Yes. Really thanks for pulling this together. Beautiful.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.